Now on Sports Talk, it's SC Wild with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer is here to take your questions about the great outdoors in South Carolina. Give him a call at 888-898-2525. It's SC Wild from DNR on the Sports Talk Radio Network.
Okay, it is time for another edition of SC Wild from the Department of Natural Resources via Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. And we welcome in out a playoff softball game, no doubt watching his lovely daughter coach the softball team. We welcome in Major Billy Downer. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Happy to be here from Travelers Rest, South Carolina, on the road for Sports Talk.
You are a great dad. You are a great dad to get up there.
Your Daniel Lions lead it 4-0 in the top of the seventh. They close it out right here with 3 outs. It's over.
How about that? How about that? Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to get into your thoughts on things in just a moment. I want to start off this program with something personal to me, but also something that I know is near and dear to your heart. So today I was back in my hometown of Latta, and a high school friend of mine, childhood friend of mine by the name of Bill Aston passed away a few days ago. And Bill Aston was a sportsman, as we talked about at the funeral. This gentleman loved the outdoors perhaps as much as, if not more than anybody in South Carolina, every aspect of it from a young age. And he dedicated his life to the outdoors of South Carolina, and also dedicated his adult life working with the 4-H shooting program in South Carolina. And his son, Player, is a game warden in the Department of Natural Resources. So all of that spun off from my friend Bill Aston. And what I wanted you to talk about is the 4-H shooting program, maybe what you know about his involvement or what you know about the 4-H shooting program, and what that means to the folks who are in that program.
So a great man. Bill Aston was a huge supporter of youth shooting sports throughout South Carolina, absolutely in the 4-H in his area, in Dillon County, huge supporter of that. Player, his son, is a product of that, went to Clemson University, won a national championship at Clemson. Player's been a standout wildlife officer. He worked for the governor's detail for a while, so that's a very prestigious position. I know his dad was so proud of him. And, yes, Bill loved to hunt. They went to Africa together, he and his dad, and they hunted across South Carolina together, just really enjoyed time together. But Bill Aston was always a supporter of youth shooting sports, a big part of 4-H and the DNR program. When we got started, Bill was always there to support us, helped us get scholarships, get support for kids, was there to help kids learn from the beginning, from stages of not even knowing anything about shooting to taking them to being competitive. So it's a sad day for sure to lose a man like Bill, but what a great man he was. And I do want to say that today is a shout out to Bill Aston, because he was a huge promoter of DNR youth shooting and 4-H for sure, and will be very much missed across this state.
Absolutely. How big is 4-H, the program for youth shooting? How big has that become across the state?
So 4-H has grown. You know, we started off with sporting clays when we started doing our shooting sports, and then from there we started working in DNR 4-H support. We really wanted to push skeet and trap, all three disciplines, and from that we started our skeet and trap program, which mirrored a lot of what 4-H was doing too. We partnered with 4-H, so we partnered with 4-H and their program statewide to support skeet trap, and it just grew. And 4-H is a huge program, and Bill is a big part of Dillon County, and from there across the state. Always at our events, always supporting kids. But, so 4-H is a huge part of what our program, it's kind of really blown out from our program. We focus on getting schools started. 4-H focuses on clubs. So they mirror together a little bit, and it works together to support youth shooting across the state. Because kids that are in schools may join a club to shoot 4-H where their schools may not shoot during the summer and things. So 4-H grows from that and just takes and just basically explodes from there, and their opportunities are endless.
I got to believe, too, Major Downer, we're talking about the 4-H shooting clubs and youth shooting clubs across the state. I got to believe that this is a great first step for educating young people on the do's and don'ts of handling firearms.
Absolutely. It is. It for the most part, it's kids that are interested in shooting. But again, Bill and others like him have brought kids in that didn't have any knowledge of shooting, boys and girls, and have made some really good shooters. So it is absolutely, it's about safety. Safety is our premium. That's the number one, number two thing we told me. That's it. That's top of it. Is safety. Safety. And 4-H has had a good safety record, and we've had a good safety record too. But we use the same disciplines as far as in our training, our coaches' training. We adopted the 4-H coaching training model. So again, we really work together to promote safety in that program for sure.
All right. Well, it was a great funeral. He was eulogized by family member and close friend, and the fact that he was so involved in the shooting side of things and the great outdoors, that was made abundantly clear today. And his son, Player, as you mentioned, has picked it up and run with it and is one of your game wardens down in Horry County.
He is. Like I said, Player had been on the governor's detail before also for a while. He was one of the guys that helped take the governor around, protect the governor, so that was a very prestigious job. He held that for a while. Again, I know that Bill is extremely proud of Player, his career at Clemson, his career as a game warden. Very proud of his son.
All right, let's turn things over to you for other thoughts about things in the great outdoors of South Carolina. What's on your mind?
All right, so tonight we are at May 1st. We are almost through with turkey season. Turkey season is over for the lower part of the state. The game zones 3 and 4, but 1 and 2 go through May 10th. Right now we're sitting around 9,600 birds total taken in the state, reported so far. Top 3 counties in the state for taking birds. All 3 of these counties are out now. Their seasons are over. So the number 1 county, and don't see anybody getting close to it, was Williamsburg County. Behind that would be Orangeburg County, and then behind that was Horry County. Kind of a surprise that Horry County was the number 3, but it certainly was. So Horry County was number 3. So top county for taking birds in the state was Orangeburg. Was Williamsburg, followed by Orangeburg, and then third was Horry County. So that was kind of a surprise. Being the beach, you think about the beach, you don't think about, think of Horry County, think of the beach. There is a lot of wonderful outdoor areas, woodlands and wetlands and fields and agriculture in Horry County as well. So probably why they had a good boasted a good turkey season. Again, we're still watching turkey numbers kind of sit at a very low level right now. A lot of concern. I'm hearing a lot of hunters talk about that. They're not seeing birds like they used to. Just bad, what we call recruitment, we talked about the last few years. So as we look at that in the coming year, hopefully legislatively we'll get back on that turkey bill and change our season to where we'll be able to get that season to where it mirrors their nesting and where we can protect the birds that we have left and hopefully get those bird numbers back up. Take a few years, but it looks like we could do that. And it looks like our hunters are all behind it. So that's the good news, is that, as we always say, our hunters are probably the greatest conservationists because they are looking after, they're out there in the woods and they're seeing the things that we see and they're concerned as well. So we look forward to that. But again, 9 more days left in the upstate here, game zone 1 and 2 for turkey season, and we'll close out turkey season. But right around the corner, and right now, 78, 80-degree days. It is boating season for sure. I've had my boat out in the last 2 weeks in some saltwater areas, enjoyed that. I always learn another thing to talk about on the show when you're out there in saltwater, things you don't think about. Remember, when you're on saltwater with your boat, things to consider. Make sure you pull that boat out of salt water to wash that engine out. When we say wash the engine out, depends on how old your motor is. You may have to put a cup on the bottom, or if you got a Yamaha like I do, which I am so happy with, it's got a little tube on the side. You screw your water hose in and just run the water through it. Don't even have to cut the motor on, and it washes all the salt water. So the reason you want to wash your motor out is to remove any salt within the motor, in the impeller or anything else. You want to get that salt out of there because that will corrode. Of course, salt corrodes everything. So that's what we want to look at right there. Make sure you wash your motor out. If you're boating in salt water, also in salt water, remember, just like you have to have your life jackets, you have to have your, throwable device. The boat's over 16 feet. You got to have your fire extinguisher if your gas tank is contained in the boat, and all your registration requirements. If you're going on water that's over 2 miles wide, and if you're in the big Beaufort area, or perhaps up in Georgetown, you're going to have flares. Flares are a good reason. They're required by Coast Guard for certain areas 2 miles wide or wider in coastal areas, and that's so that if you're in distress, you've got a visible distress that you can sound off, or not sound off, but you can activate so that somebody can see that flare to see you're in trouble. Along with your that's outside of your normal whistle that most boats have, the horn. So that's something to think about when you're in salt water. But again, trailering, backing boats in the salt water, getting out of salt water, wash your trailer off, get the salt water off your boat and your motor and your trailer, because it will rot your trailer completely out from under it if you're not careful. So just things to think about when you're boating in salt water. As we look to Memorial Weekend coming up, now that we're in May, the next few weekends, people are getting out in the water. Again, remember boating safety. We've got a lot of things going on. I want to highlight, and we're going to be highlighting through some commercials this summer, is watching your wake. A year ago, 2 years ago, we changed that wake to where it was not from 50 feet to 100 feet from a dock in most areas. Some areas are still 50 feet, but a lot of areas it's 100 feet from a dock now, which changes the distance at which you can have a wake. Remember, when you're carrying a wake, that means your boat is creating that wave behind it. It goes out in a V. If you're in, generally, no wake is going to be when you drop your throttle back all the way to neutral and one click, I'll call it one click forward, that boat's just engaged. That's your minimum. That's going to be no wake, basically where you're at the no wake, you're easing through an area. So no wake zones are typically found around fueling facilities where you get gas on the water, landings a lot of times, or areas of high congestion, sometimes like Wapu Cut in Charleston and some other areas that you'll see some no wake zones. A lot of people look for no wake zones all over the place. We can't answer every no wake request, because if we did, the whole state would be no wake, I can tell you. Nobody wants you to run anywhere. And then nobody enjoys it because they can't get, you want to be out, get out. There's places in this state where you can safely get up and run your boat, no doubt. We don't need to no wake the whole thing, but we do, no wake is a big deal. But that 100-foot rule was a really big deal that came in with the onset of our wake boats, your wakeboarding boats that take on water in the boat. It's the design of the boat. They fill ballasts in the boat, makes the boat real heavy, so when the boat moves, it's pushing a lot of water. So it pushes this huge wave behind it. My daughter, when she was at Clemson, she surfed behind them. She's got videos. It's very popular today. These boats are very popular, $75,000, $85,000, $95,000. And these boats, they create a huge wake. And they're meant to go out in open water and to enjoy a no wake, a wake like that out in open water, not up in tight, areas, tight sloughs. And what people unfortunately do is they enjoy riding behind them, enjoy surfing behind them, or hydro sliding around them, or whatever, or kneeboarding, or skiing, and then they pull them into a very tight area, slough, and they pull that wake, and that wake comes crashing into docks, into boats, and it causes damage, and people get really upset when their boat gets messed up that they got on the water. Because remember, boats are $50,000, $65,000, $100,000 plus ahead, up 150, 200,000. Some of the boats out there today that have twin motors and all, your good scouts, they're 150 starting, a lot of them, 1,000. So a lot of money invested in boats. They don't want their boat being banged up against a dock because somebody drug a wake in there. So we're putting a lot of attention on know your wake, watch your wake this summer, to remind people that law changed. You got to be 100 feet away from docks with your wake. Now, 100 feet away, typically your wake's going to dissipate, but those wake boats, not necessarily. So even though you may be 100 feet away, you need to be ethical and think about that wake you're dragging. Go out in open water. If you got a wake boat and you want to pull a wake and ski behind that wake or surf, go out in the open water and do it. Don't do it in sloughs where that wake's going to cause damage or come crashing up somebody's dock on their boat.
Let me ask you this.
Again, and asking people to think.
Let me ask you something here from a kind of a different angle. And this is SC Wild from DNR with Major Billy Downer. So from the standpoint of the boat owner, and you've got your boat docked, and I know you've got the cushions that protect your boat from banging up against your dock. You got your boat tied up.
Right.
But, what advice do you give to the boat owner about tying up your boat as best as possible to help protect it against a too strong wake? Is there some things you can do to help yourself protect your boat?
There are. There's lifts that people put in that pay a lot of money for to lift the boat out of the water. There's these they look like fishing rods that push the boat out and hold it in place. But when you have a tremendous wake like that, it can cause that boat to still hit the dock. And if you have a tremendous wake, even with those cushions, you can force that boat up against that dock because that weight. Those cushions are meant for general weight, general bumping, not for a big wave that comes in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what gets people really mad. Is there's really not a lot you can do to protect from a huge. I'm talking about a huge wake. I'm talking about these wake boats pull 2-foot waves behind them, 3-foot waves behind them, and those things take forever to dissipate. Now I'm not picking on wake boats. They're a lot of fun, but they need to be done in the right place, out in open water, away from tight sloughs, so that you don't cause damage to other people. Plus, they have huge stereo systems, and they bang noise out there because everybody wants to ski behind it and listen to the music. And people in the sloughs don't want to hear your music banging either. So it's dual on your ethics thing. Don't be blasting music everybody else don't want to hear. And people get kind of fussy about that. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But go out in open water and do it. No problem. Plenty of open water out there to do that and enjoy your music, and also, run out there and have that big wake and enjoy it, and give enough room for that wake to dissipate before it gets to shore. And out in the middle of the lake is a perfect place to do it. There's plenty of open water areas to do it. So again, we're encouraging that. Again, no wake's been around for a long time. The coast is very familiar with no wakes. One of the things I will say about no wakes on the coast is, if you see a sign that says no wake, you need to make sure it has a DNR emblem on it. It has a DNR emblem on it. It's a real no wake sign. Sometimes people put up no wake signs to protect their docks, and it's not a real no wake zone. But that's just something to look out for. If it has a DNR emblem on it, it's a real no wake sign. Also, there are signs we put out there that are informational that say slow, you are responsible for your wake. That doesn't say slow to no wake. It says slow, you're responsible. Different. It's not a no-wake zone, but it's reminding you you're responsible for your wake. Even though it's a no-wake zone like I'm talking about, even though it's not a wake zone, if you run hard enough that your wake causes a damage to a boat, you could be liable for that. Civilly, somebody could come after you. So it's just, again, use common sense. Unfortunately, we have to create laws because people don't use common sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens. But try to think about those when you want to run. And there's places where you just can't, the Intercoastal Waterway is one of those places we always get complaints. Intercoastal Waterway is meant to run, and it's hard when you got an Intercoastal Waterway that's not that wide. And you got people that build docks in the Intercoastal Waterway where it really wasn't meant for docks to be built. But that's what's happened, We populate everything. And the Intercoastal Waterway is meant to run on. So it's just, there's some areas you can't watch your wake as much there. It's just hard if you want to run from A to B. Because the Intercoastal Waterway is meant for you to run up and down the coast without going out in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So just a couple things to think about as we look at no wakes coming up this summer and prepare for boating season. Just, again, be responsible for your wake. Know where you should have a wake and where you shouldn't. There are no wake zones. Know where those are. And those are areas, again, of high congestion, fueling areas, landings, those kind of places. But outside of that, also know that your wake can cause damage, even if it's not a wake zone. You still could cause damage to a boat, and be aware of that. And try to do your best to run your boat so that you're not going to cause damage to somebody else.
It's about courtesy, right? It's about common courtesy.
It's absolutely about courtesy, no doubt. No doubt.
Well, we're looking forward to, the boating season, as you mentioned, this being May 1. And Mother's Day.
On us. People have been out the last 2 weeks. It gets 70 degrees. People hit the water.
So you're starting to see the traffic pick up.
Absolutely, people all over the water. I went out last weekend. People were everywhere, no doubt, enjoying the water, enjoying cruising. And again, some of the things you enjoy when you have a boat. Just remember, if you're going out there and you plan to stay all day and you plan to do an evening cruise, a sunset cruise, whatever, and you want to watch that sunset, remember it's going to get dark after that. When it's official sunset, you've got to have your running lights on. That's your front bow light and your white all-around light in the back. Front lights red and green. Green is to the right, and your red light's on the left. So red is to left as to port, as green is to starboard. And there's a reason for that, so that people, when they see you from the side, know which way you're going. They can tell by that green light. If they see the green light, they know they can continue. They have the right of way. They see the red light, they know that you have the right of way and they're to stop. There's a reason for those lights. But again, your bow light and your white all-around light. The white all-around light is always your most important light because it's what people can see when they come up behind you. Now, boating in South Carolina has become challenging in the last 10, 20 years because there's so much ambient light from folks who've put dock lights, built houses on the lake. So now you got all this white light out there, and this one white all-around light sometimes will disappear amongst all those lights. So when you run in low light and at night, be very careful. You should drop back on your speed so that you can pick up those lights, pick up those boats, because sometimes they can get lost in a sea of lights out there. The light from docks, the light from other houses, and you need to make sure you're prepared to come up on a boat. A couple hints on that. If you cross the wake, something caused that wake. Even if you're out in the middle of the lake, you need to start looking. That's the first thing I learned as a game warden when I first started. My boss told me a long time ago. When I first started, when you run over a wake, slow down because there's something that caused that wake. And you may be coming up on a boat. And that's helped me a lot of times at night because sometimes people's lights don't work. And they're out there running without lights. That's even more dangerous. But make sure your lights are working before you go out there and plan to stay out there for the night. Before July 4th, because we'd always talk about this prior to July 4th because everybody brings a boat out for July 4th for fireworks, and their lights never work because they didn't check them before they went out there. They get out there and they're like, oh, the lights don't work. Well, that's not an excuse. Your lights need to work, particularly when there's hundreds of people in the water. You definitely need to make sure your running lights are working so people can see your boat.
The other thing, too, I'd like to throw at you is you're talking about all-day boating. I mean, let's face it, we're going to find some people operating boats who've been partying a little bit too much all day by the time that evening sun starts to set.
Absolutely. So boating under the influence is the focus for us as we talk about the deadly days of summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Absolutely. Our officers will focus on boating under the influence. Remember, in South Carolina, it's not illegal to have an alcoholic beverage on your boat. It's not illegal for the driver to have a beer in his hand if you're operating a boat. However, it is illegal to operate a boat impaired. Impaired is different for every person. I'm not going to talk about .08. Everybody knows that you're legally drunk if you're .08. If you get a breathalyzer and you're .08, you're legally drunk. But everybody, it's illegal to operate a boat intoxicated, and that is different for every person. So if you're going to operate a boat and you're going to drink, have a designated driver. It's just too simple. Find somebody like me who doesn't drink to drive your boat, that knows how to operate it. Don't get out there and get sloshed and then pull we see this a lot, and I don't mean to pick on wives.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wives that can run a boat better than their husbands. But there's a lot of times husbands will get drunk and then have their wife drive the boat that has no idea how to run the boat. And that's not safe either. So make sure you have somebody that operates and knows how to operate that boat.
So, as we wrap things up, give us the update on your softball game.
Well, you may have heard in the background, we just finished up Daniel 6, Travelers Rest 0. So game 1 in the playoffs for 3A softball upper state is now over tonight.
And that head coach for the Daniel team would be?
Cora Downer, of course. No doubt. What a great last name, eh?
And she's getting it done, right? She's getting it done.
They're getting it done. They got it done tonight. They sure did.
Major, we thank you as always. Great stuff all night long. Hope people learn some things about our friend Bill Aston and also learn some things about being safe on the water this summer. Absolutely. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, and congratulations to Cora and the Daniel Lions on that softball win tonight. Appreciate the Major being with us here on Sports Talk from DNR SC Wild.